tell you about Flippy.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Okay. Flippy is our colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a way to explore all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world and how there's nothing we can do about it. This was a great find, Gonzo. And it's a great find because it is a story that has floated past us a couple times before, but this really told us what the deal is. This is coming from Politico, and the headline is Robots, Marines, and the Ultimate Battle with Bureaucracy.
More bureaucracy.
Feels like more bureaucracy, please. This feels like the theme for today's show is battle with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And I have things highlighted. I'm going to summarize it very quickly. It's a very long breakdown with lots of interesting history and theory inside of it, as Politico likes to do sometimes. But I'll give you the straight dope here. It goes like this. In July 2008, a year before President Barack Obama surged 33,000 ground troops into Afghanistan. Another... and a resounding paka flies through the air across the world. A Marine Corps officer at Camp Pendleton, California, sent an urgent memo up his chain of command acknowledging an embarrassing truth. Marines, famous for their marksmanship flair, weren't very good at hitting their targets in a war zone. Where is this going? In combat, troops needed to neutralize a moving enemy, Major Eric Doherty noted, but the Corps, using static target practice that hadn't changed much since the Revolutionary War, had, quote, no systems or ranges that could prepare them for the task. He pleaded for resources and, in particular, a way to teach Marines to hit a target that moved unpredictably and as fast as a man could run. Quote, failure to respond to this need will mean the continued degrading of critical marksmanship skills required to succeed in an asymmetric environment, he wrote. It took a few years, but in June 2011, a new military training tool rolled onto a firing range at Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia. It was a fleet of autonomous robotic targets that were human-sized and mounted on moving platforms, made by an Australian company called Marathon and available for evaluation through a Pentagon testing program. Doherty's memo about the Marines' struggles eventually made its way to a Marathon source, who provided it to Politico. The beige humanoid torsos looked a bit crude with their pasted-on paper faces and costume clothes, and their Segway bases struggled at times to navigate grassy and uneven terrain. But the shooters, an array of elite Marine weapons specialists, SEALs, and Army special operators, were astonished. When the targets started moving, they started missing. Despite their expert marksmanship badges, engaging these machines felt different too. When the robots lurched toward them, cortisol levels spiked, and even seasoned fighters were left shaky and on edge. And you've got to see the pictures of these things. It's literally a Segway that's been sort of, tinkered with to put, for those who have ever been to like a fighting gym, Gons, you might have had these at your boxing gym. The angry looking
the angry man
with no
punch.
arms.
Yeah.
And you punch him and he's made of sort of like ballistic rubber. It's basically those on Segways. But to top it all off, they kind of dress the man up.
It's got a beard, like overall.
No, not even a beard. They dress them up like Middle Eastern, like a stereotypical. There's like turbans on them.
Looks like it makes it seem like their pants are down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's a bunch of terrorists not wearing pants, is what it is, which is hilarious. I mean, it's. You just think about like the highest level of training
military
for our warriors, and it's these incredibly silly, low budget robots on
This
Segways.
Is reality right here? Or are you sure this isn't just a screenshot from some kind of game?
It looks like a something you'd see on Comedy Central or something. But it gets even better. I mean, they got these robots. They look very silly, and these seasoned fighters, our best warriors, who are using them for target practice, are getting scared of them as they come towards them. Cortisol levels spiked, and they're left shaky on edge. And here's a beautiful paragraph. Quote, "I like how it puts emotion into training." One Marine of another theme there of the emotions here. I like how it puts emotion into training. One Marine evaluator wrote in a later test feedback obtained by Politico from a Defense Department source. Quote, "Because believe it or not, when those targets charge you, it's freaky." Another wrote that the robots added a different mental dimension to training. Quote, "Marines are engaging in a more human-like target, which conditions them to the friction of taking life." Ooh.
Oh man, so many angles. It's like training the robot. It's training the human to feel less, to kill, but also they're doing that training by killing robots. I mean, it's just the whole
I know
mess.
Conditioning them to the friction of taking a life is pretty heavy. Yeah. We're almost done here. Lieutenant Colonel Walt Yates, at the time, an assistant professor of manager, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He told Politico, quote, "The greatest day of my professional career." When these Segway goofy robots were used, it was the greatest day of this man's career. It's amazing. Oh, man. Quote further down, "If in this case it takes..." Okay, so now here's the problem.
Okay.
They got these robots in 2011. And since 2011, these robots have been stuck in what they call the Valley of Death.
Yes.
And the Valley of Death is basically bureaucratic purgatory, where getting more of these robots, getting people to pay attention, procuring them, getting them paid for, it's just stalled out for 11 years. They have basically got one batch of these robots. That was the best day in this man's career and changed the future of our Marines forever. They got one batch in 2011, and then it was stuck in the Valley of Death, the bureaucratic purgatory, and they've never been able to get more of them.
Yeah.
And here's some quotes. Quote, "If in this case it takes a decade to procure something as simple as a targeting system, can you imagine the risks that we're running by not being more aggressive with swarming, aerial drones, more sophisticated machine learning and intelligence," says August Cole, a leading military futurist and non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council.
Yep. I had there that highlighted in my original thing here.
You get your nice globalist think tank there. Quote, "This is sort of the tip of the iceberg that you're looking at as representative of a problems throughout." Now, the rest of the article, it's quite long, very thorough. I recommend people check it out, is all about how bureaucratic gumminess, that the Valley of Death, the military's, hoops they have to jump through to get the things that they need, needs to be abolished. They need to get rid of bureaucracy. They need to let the military acquisition whatever they want. And it's all based around these targeting robots.
And the Marine has, we're talking about the Marines who've had this. The Army doesn't have anything. The earliest they can have something is like 2024. And here's a quote here from John Cochran, retired Army colonel who served as acting director of the Close Combat Lethality Task Force for most of 2020. Has a name for the limbo that follows the successful demonstration of new military technology, the Valley of Death, but he calls it Middle Earth. The pathway out of Middle Earth, he says, requires operational demand from the ground forces. Quote, "extreme strategic interest from at least one influential leader, the right timing, and a fair amount of pure luck." So literally they're like, we need some kind of conflict that will demand or like to just absolutely require us to have an army of robots to train, which it's crazy.
And that's kind of the problem with this thing now is you have different
aliens
pieces of government.
They're going to release the aliens, man. They're going to have bad guy aliens. The only way to train to fight aliens is we got to unleash the robots.
I think aliens or robots like that. I mean,
or other robots.
It's a common refrain, to talk about how the U.S. government manufactures crises, and that's the only way to get things done. That has been our setup for so long, and it's all based on the bureaucratic stoppage. And there's a quote right after that paragraph you read. That's how you see what I like to call acquisition and operational conversions, he says. It's talking about the crises. Quote, it's the idea that you're taking the decision space away from the middle of the bureaucratic process. Right. So there's this big push, all based around these targeting dummies, that they need to get rid of all bureaucratic middlemen when it comes to military acquisitions. And I believe that these targeting dummies is sort of a friendly example, but they even stated in that quote, if they were able to do this, to abolish this bureaucratic nonsense, that would grease the gears for getting things like swarm drones and robot killbots and, all AI, targeting AI, you can almost think of the bureaucrats as like the little Dutch boy with his finger in the dam, and we got to get rid of that little Dutch boy. And so the robots can just explode through the dam and be used by our military. On the theme, again, folks, we do not plan the themes of these shows. They come organically, and we're not even to our first break, and every single piece of what's going on today is revolved around completely restructuring how specifically our non-elected bureaucracies work to empower, in one case, Congress to make laws, but in this other case, empower our military to get their hands and utilize robots to their heart's content.
I'm curious if there are similar sort of red tape issues with things like AI or more like software-based stuff. Is it the same?
It's the same.
So they're not using any AI tech in the field? It feels like they're already using that for like
they're not using it. The point is that
training.
They're making a movement. There is a strategic move happening within the military to circumvent bureaucracy. And, you talk about AI in the field, you talk about things in the field, that can be justified by crisis,
Sure.
Oh, we have a crisis.
Which is, they're basically laying out the same blueprint here for this with the robots. And
exactly.
But
it's the exact same
greater point is that, yes, they're trying to change the whole process.
Yeah, so we have Flippy. Again, what we do here is we dissect how Flippy specifically, seemingly a benevolent little cute robot coming into different areas of our lives. Not that robot is the one to be scared of, but how it is being presented and used to, more harmfully make robots ubiquitous across our lives. To usher in the technocracy. And this cute little stupid little robot on a Segway that we got in 2011 is being used as the ammunition to get rid of the bureaucracy, that is holding back just a swarm of different types of technology to be utilized by the military in different ways. And that's Flippy for you. He's, we have a complicated relationship with robots, specifically Flippy, but Flippy is a victim. Flippy is just a victim to the whims of human beings trying to use him to control the world. And I'm not saying there's no bad robots, but sometimes a good robot gets used for bad purposes.
I know what the Segway robots look like. They look like NPCs.
Yes. Yeah, that's basically what they are. Physical NPCs, really badly programmed, bad graphics NPCs. So there you go. That's your Flippy update for the day.
Come on, give the military NPCs to shoot.